Matt Yute is a high school senior. Living in the nice town of East Grand Rapids, he has always been able to live a good life. The son of a retired NFL QB veteran, Jeff Yute, Matt has always had a target on his back. His high recruitment status definitely was a mix of his dad's name and his own. There's no question that having a famous dad has helped him progress through football far easier than many others. He has been given opportunities his whole life that many would only wish for. All of this came with a price. While Matt was very good at football, he was entitled. Many people did not like him based off his off-the-field personality. He believed he was the best ever and nothing could stop him. It didn't help that he literally was the best QB in his class, which only inflated his ego even more. He was a known narcissistic, and his playing style mimicked that as he stat padded instead of wanting to be a better teammate. Being the varsity starter since sophomore year, he gained tons of college exposure, and by his junior year he had 40+ D1 offers from schools such as Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, and Notre Dame. He was also rated a 5-star QB on every major recruiting website, and was the #1 player in the class. Throughout his high school years, he rarely tried in the classroom, and the only reason he had passing grades was due to his insane football skills. Once again, he was never held accountable and his grades were inflated by his teachers. When he wasn't playing football, he was partying with his friends or speeding through traffic in his sports car purchased by his dad. He even had a couple run-ins with the police where once again he was let off with no consequences. It was now Matt's senior year and he still had not committed to any universities yet. As you can see, he had generational talent and he was clearly the best in his class. There was no doubt that Matt was insane at football. He put up insane numbers with his passing yards per game, reaching numbers of 500+. High school football was almost too easy for him. So far, having an undefeated season due to Matt's incredible talents, it was clear that EGR would probably make it to the state championship. A couple games into the season, Matt finally made his college decision.
I will be attending the University of Notre Dame. I just want to thank myself for being such a stellar athlete, as only I have brought myself here.
This commitment speech was taken with tons of backlash as it showcased his true character. It almost gives a brief glimpse into Matt's future college football career. If he doesn't humble himself soon, it could be very bad for him. Notre Dame fans were super excited for him to commit, and he was seen to be the savior of the team's future. Continuing on with the season, Matt was perfect at QB. He had tons of games with 5+ passing touchdowns, and he always stole the game from even the best teams. No high school competition could stop Matt and his EGR squad. It was now time for the first round of the playoffs against undefeated Saginaw. Like usual, this was an absolute breeze for Matt as he put up great stats. It was a blowout game. Round 2 of the playoffs started off very similar where Matt threaded the needle with his crazy throw. This team continued to put up crazy numbers as this was another blowout game. We can't forget to thank the defense because they always held out the teams to very little points. Round 2 of the playoffs ended in a great game for Matt, and they moved on to round 3, where once again Matt and his team played so well that Matt didn't even play the second half of this entire game. This was an insane victory over a very good Burton team. Just like that, Matt and his team were now in the state championship against an undefeated Ferndale. However, many people predicted this was going to be another blowout for Matt and his team. This was Matt's first taste at playing in a big stadium. They were playing in the big house with a big crowd watching them. The pressure was clearly showing as Matt threw an interception very early on in this game. This was Matt's first interception this entire year, so he vowed to never let this happen again and he was going to step up his game. He immediately struck back and threw for his first touchdown of the game. After that interception, this game was never close again as Matt showed adversity to push through that setback and keep going. This game was completely out of reach for the other team, and this was a sealed victory for Matt and his EGR squad as they just won the state championship with ease, and this just felt like any other game for Matt. Matt was now very excited to go to college and hopefully bring over these same talents. In an interview after a state championship win, he was asked,
"Do you see yourself starting your freshman year at Notre Dame?"
Without a doubt, there is no competition even close to me, so I will win the job easily. I am going to bring Notre Dame a national championship. I know it.
Ultimately, college football was a shock to Matt. Like we could all pretty much predict, he was instantly humbled. Being thrown straight into practice, Matt saw just how much better his competition would be. He kept these worries to himself though, as he didn't want anyone to see his confidence break. He remained cocky on the outside and even towards his own teammates. Everyone was starting to notice this early on, even before the season began. Ultimately, he would not win the starting job before week 1. Matt was gutted as this was his first real time he ever felt a setback within his football career. He sat on the sidelines for the first time ever and it fueled him with rage. After week 1, he continued to do whatever he could in practice, even starting to get the hang of it a little bit. It seemed like his team was doing pretty good without him as they were a top 10 team. At this point, Matt was the third string QB, which is a huge letdown compared to what he was hyped up to be. He was finally given the chance to challenge the second string QB for his spot. Matt had been doing better in practice, so his coach thought he was finally starting to get warmed up, and since he was just a freshman, they can't consider him a bust yet. In his first QB battle, he performed decent but not good enough as the other QB was better. He was so mad at everyone. Week after week, he failed in practice and he could never win a second string job. Everyone was so confused on where Matt was as he was hyped up to be the team starter from day 1. Fans felt upset that he was not seeing the field and that they were wasting generational talent. However, not many of them knew what was happening in the background in terms of his real performances and practices. Many fans wanted Matt to start from day 1 as a true freshman. Many people expected Matt to stay only for 3 years in college, so they needed to use him now before he was gone. He was supposed to be the savior of the team. The hype behind him in the summer leading up to the season was insane. Now that he wasn't even seeing the field, everyone was super disappointed in his performance. Due to the insane hype, Matt had so much to live up to, and since he hadn't even seen the field yet once, this year was a massive letdown. Many people, fans, and college experts were already calling him a bust, even though it was just his freshman year. This hurt his confidence greatly, and he started to mentally not be there in things such as practices. It didn't help that Matt was also a massive partier. Coming from high school to the new college environment, especially at a big university, he couldn't stay away. Especially being on the football team, and his own name led him to instant popularity on campus. He was starting to slack off in practice and only focus on partying and having fun. At this point, there was only a couple weeks left in the season. Notre Dame was still doing decent and clearly didn't need him at QB. Matt was starting to get angry at the coaching staff for not giving him the special treatment he normally got everywhere else in his life. He continued to lose every QB battle he was given week after week though. Notre Dame took a bad loss to Pitt, which should have been an easy win. That put Notre Dame at 3 losses, which significantly affected them in their playoff run and the overall rankings. So even the whole team was doing not great. The fan base was starting to become angry at the team and Matt. In practice, Matt continued to make bad reads and throw lots of picks. It was clear it would be no time soon before Matt ever saw the field in a game. However, he ended up having a pretty good practice and was super close to getting the second string job. However, he still landed short just like usual. Notre Dame ended up losing another game. It is not looking good for the team at all. A 4-loss season is not good and not what the preseason thought. In the final game of the season, Notre Dame won a close game against Stanford to go 8-4 in the regular season. They were put in the New Mexico Bowl against Rice, which ended in a close overtime win, which should have been a blowout victory. Overall, fans were furious with the outcome of the season. Once again, Notre Dame had been insanely overhyped in the preseason, and Matt made no contribution to help. In a press conference, he was asked,
"Since you did not start at all this season, what do you plan to do to help this team and start next year?"
I'm tired of this program pushing me in the back constantly. Same with the fan base and every news outlet always having my name in their mouths. Just you wait and see. You will all regret what you have said about me.
After the speech, any credibility that he still had was down the drain. Matt was now at an all-time low. Just like that, his freshman season was now over, and it couldn't have gone any worse. Through the offseason, Matt continued to struggle. His first pass back was terrible. At this point, he was pretty much an afterthought in the team's eyes and the fans' eyes. He was no longer in the spotlight, and he was almost completely forgotten. Notre Dame just landed another great QB recruit, and he was put in the shadows. The team had a solid starter and backup, so there was clearly no room on this team for Matt. However, in his mind, he remained cocky and confident. He kept telling himself that he was going to be the starter. After never playing his freshman year, Matt believed he was going to become the starter this year. He still thought he was too good to not become the starter. However, Matt continued to not play up to his game in practice, and he was always lacking in things such as arriving on time to meetings, always having a bad attitude, and many other things. He once again did not get the starting job by week 1. Matt was absolutely furious. To ease his mind, he went back home. He decided to take his car for a spin. His rage-filled driving caused him to be extra reckless. He pulled up to an intersection with a red light. Without a single thought, Matt decided to floor on the gas. He ended up T-boning another car. He immediately fled the scene out of not knowing what to do and only to have the cops knock on his door a couple hours later. The police took him into custody, but his dad paid his bail. This was terrible for Matt. This was just his sophomore year of college and he already got himself screwed. If his coach found out about this, it could mean removal from the team. His court date was set and he could now be facing real jail time. Eventually, his coach found out and was furious. Obviously, Matt could not be on the team and fight this legal battle at the same time. He was eventually kicked off the Notre Dame team and was no longer attending the university. It appeared that his college career may be over. The rest of his year was spent in the ongoing legal battle. Thanks to his dad's wealth, he was able to get the best lawyers out there. Amazingly, Matt was let off with no jail time, just probation due to the fact that no one was seriously injured. This was huge luck for Matt, which he finally needed. This was his wake-up call. From now on, he was going to work. For once in his life, he was the underdog, and he made it his goal to push harder than anyone else ever. Matt's junior year was spent mostly training on his own and with coaches. He attended any camps he could to gain exposure. He continued to work on himself by hitting the gym and running. He told himself he would do anything to just get one more chance from any team. Matt never realized what he had and how much he loved playing football until it was taken away from him. In his time off, he stayed away from trouble and just worked on his game. As a Michigan native, Eastern Michigan had their eyes set on Matt from an early age. However, they were always put in the dust by the bigger universities trying to recruit Matt. At the time of Matt's initial recruitment, he never even acknowledged the university's existence. Now, things were different. Matt submitted his tapes to every possible school out there with no response. Reasonably, no one wanted to deal with Matt after hearing about his attitude, skills, and most importantly, his legal background. However, Eastern Michigan thought differently. At the time, they were in need of a quarterback. They offered Matt a preferred walk-on spot to the team for his senior season as they didn't want to commit to him with a full scholarship spot on the team just yet. Matt realized this was his last chance and his final shot to make a name for himself. This was it. This was the one chance he needed to prove that he could be one of the greatest. His dad, however, was done helping him financially and just in general. Thankfully, he had saved his NIL money from his initial deal with Notre Dame. This was his ticket in, and he was now ready for his senior year at Eastern Michigan. Matt was ready for this year. He worked as hard as he could throughout camp and he ended up winning the starting job for this next year. It was now time for his first game and he knew he was ready. Eastern Michigan's week 1 matchup was against an FCS school, so this was a good warm-up for Matt. This was actually his first time stepping onto a field in his entire college career and he was ready. His first pass back was a completion. Though it wasn't the best, it was still something and it gave him some confidence. And just like that, his very next play was a first down. He was on a roll so far. His first drive was going amazing. He continued to make solid passing plays until he finally found an opportunity for himself to take his own move on the run as he found open field and got 28 yards. He used to be more of a pocket passer, but in the offseason he was training his running, so he was going to try and utilize that even more. Unfortunately, that first drive resulted in no points, but he was able to find another perfect pass to Tanner New, who was going to be a popular target this season. Once again, he was able to find Tanner down the middle of the field. That brought them straight into the red zone. After not seeing any open receivers, Matt decided to take this one for himself. He did some weird movements, but he made it into the end zone for his first touchdown of the season and his college career. Matt was once again able to move his team down into deep enemy territory, almost into the end zone, off a crazy passing play. He finally found an open receiver in the end zone for his first passing touchdown of his college career. It was clear that Eastern Michigan was actually a force to be reckoned with as they were putting up the numbers on this FCS team. Matt was clearly unstoppable at QB. He was finally showing his talents off to the entire nation, proving them wrong. He once again proved he had legs now and he was a dual threat quarterback. He was weaving all over these defenders, making them look stupid. Matt was locked in. Matt was pulled for the rest of the game as they were blowing out FCS East. They got a solid win for their first first game. This was only the easiest. It was only going to get harder from here. Matt had a great first game back. This next week was really going to test Matt as they were going up against a top 25 Penn State team. Being in front of this huge crowd at Beaver Stadium, he got nervous and he got sacked on his first play. He struck back by using his legs though, as he almost got the first down. He was just about a yard short. Going against this good Penn State team, he had less time in the pocket. He had to wheel out here and he ended up finding his tight end for a great pass. On a crucial third down, Matt ended up finding an open receiver, placed that right in the breadbasket for 14 yards. Just like that, Eastern Michigan was almost in the Penn State end zone. Matt found an open receiver in the end zone for his first touchdown of the game. Nobody could believe that Eastern Michigan just scored on Penn State first. Unlike his previous years, this was now a team effort as Eastern Michigan was working as an entire team to move down this field against Penn State. Penn State's defense was getting absolutely embarrassed by Matt and his Eastern Michigan offense as they just went up by 2 possessions. Going into the second half, Eastern Michigan had to maintain a good game if they wanted to keep this lead. In the very next play, right after that, Matt found a wide open receiver for another touchdown, their third of the game. The Eastern Michigan defense was also really clutching up here as they held Penn State to no points on that last drive. With time ticking down on the clock, Matt threw his first interception this season in the worst possible time. Penn State could not come back now. This was now a 3-point game, so Matt had to step up now more than ever. The clock was ticking down and Penn State was now out of timeouts. This first down by Matt sealed this victory for Eastern Michigan as they got a top 25 victory over Penn State. This shocked the nation and now Matt's name was right back in the spotlight, but this time he was the underdog and he was proving everyone wrong. This win over Penn State was massive. For their next game, Eastern Michigan was on the road at Rutgers. After beating the hardest team on their schedule, they could beat anyone. Matt brought himself into the end zone for the first touchdown of the game to give them a 7-point lead. Going into the second half of this game, Eastern Michigan was able to maintain a 1-possession lead. Matt continued to find targets in the end zone for touchdowns. It was nothing but big plays coming from this Eastern Michigan squad as the receivers were always able to get wide open for Matt to hit them with perfect passes. This game was getting completely out of reach from Rutgers as Eastern Michigan took their third win of the season, beating Rutgers by 10. Next up was Ball State at home, where Tanner New was able to turn this pass from Matt into a crazy 44-yard play. If there was nothing open in the air, Matt was able to take everything with ease on the ground into the end zone. It was clear this game was already long gone. Eastern Michigan was starting to be unstoppable, especially against these weaker MAC teams. They were clearly a dark horse team this year, a trap team for many others and something to look out for as they got their 4th win of the season. Next team on the schedule was Buffalo. Surprisingly, Eastern Michigan found themselves down for once, but Matt didn't make that last long as he found a wide open receiver for a touchdown. It was clear that Buffalo was one of the harder MAC teams in the conference as it was less of a blowout than normal. However, it was now a 2-possession lead. Check out this crazy throw made by Matt here where he absolutely threaded the needle to get this to the receiver for the completed pass. This game was now a blowout victory as Matt took another touchdown for himself. Their next game against Army took them a little bit to get going offensively, but Matt made this crazy 36-yard touchdown to tie up the game. After that, momentum swung in their favor as they got a 21-7 victory over Army. Up next was a conference game against Ohio where this game started off with a crazy fluke interception, which I personally think should not have been. This is the most they've been down this entire year, so Matt needed to come back with some big plays to get them back in this game. And in literally a 2-play drive, Matt was able to find a receiver into the end zone. That was a crazy drive right there to get them back into this game a little bit. Matt wasn't done this quarter though, as he took his legs into open field to get himself 37 yards and almost into the end zone, which resulted in them taking the lead. Eastern Michigan was able to hold on the rest of the game and get a solid victory over Ohio. Like usual, Matt was the player of the game. Just like that, Eastern Michigan was now ranked in the top 25 at number 24. Northern Illinois was another easy opponent for Eastern Michigan and Matt, as these DBs and defenses couldn't do anything against this crazy offense. At this point, Matt had to be on the Heisman watch list. This was another easy victory for the undefeated team. Their next game against Toledo started off similar with a touchdown early on. This game was actually way closer than expected, so Matt had to seal this one with another touchdown to give them the victory. This in-state rivalry against Western Michigan was also a little too close for comfort, so Matt had to clutch up at the end as well, as he had another 2-play drive where his receiver turned this play from nothing into something. No one could believe how they were still undefeated this season. No one was expecting this. This next week came as a shock to the nation as Eastern Michigan was now a top 10 team in the AP poll. Scarily, these games were starting to get a little bit closer though, as against this Bowling Green team, they were up by only 5. Thankfully, they quickly made this a 2-possession game. Matt had an absolutely insane game though with 7 touchdowns, where he rightfully won Player of the Week. Their last regular season game of the season was against Central Michigan, and it was a snowy one. Once again, no team could stop them as they got yet another blowout to keep their season undefeated. It was now time for the MAC championship game against Buffalo. They were starting down by 7, so it was time to get going, and so far their first drive was going perfectly. On this wheel out, Matt almost overthrew this, but his receiver thankfully kept both feet in bounds for the touchdown. However, going into the 4th quarter, Eastern Michigan was down by a touchdown to Buffalo, and to tie up the game, Matt found wide open Tanner in the end zone as he burnt his DB and got lots of separation. Eastern Michigan had a chance to take the lead here. Matt continued to make back-to-back big plays as they got almost into the red zone, and immediately after that, Matt found Tanner Newell in the end zone zone again. He is just unstoppable, this duo. Buffalo tied the game. The pressure was getting on, and at the worst possible time, Matt threw an interception. This was a terrible time. There was just over a minute left. Buffalo kicked a field goal. The game was looking just about over as there was just 20 seconds left, but Matt pulled out a crazy play. It was not over yet. That was 33 yards. With just 10 seconds left in the game, Matt found one of his receivers straight up the middle. He burnt all the DBs. He almost got into the end zone. It was so close. They took this game into overtime, and immediately Matt found open room on the field, and he took this all the way into the end zone for a touchdown, which sealed them the MAC championship victory. Thanks to Matt, he saved this game from Buffalo. He was absolutely overwhelmed with emotions. Everything he worked for led up to this one moment. He didn't just win that championship, he also won the Heisman. Everything was coming together. The job wasn't finished though. It was time for the national championship against undefeated USC. The first play of this game couldn't have gone any better for Matt as he found Tanner Newell once again wide open for him. He knew they had little room for error, so they had to make everything work and make everything perfect. And that's exactly what they did this first drive as they perfectly executed their first touchdown. Going up against USC into the second half would be key, but it was clear that this was going to be their toughest matchup yet as things were tough. They had another chance to get more points before the half, but pressure got to Matt as he threw an interception, his first of the game. Just like that, they were down by 3. There were still 20 seconds left on the clock though. We know Eastern Michigan can work with any time. Matt just threw up the ball. Thankfully his receiver came down with it and they got a huge gain. He stepped out of bounds too. On the next play, Matt found a receiver up the middle and that got them into the red zone. With time ticking down on the clock, Matt found his favorite receiver Tanner Newell in the end zone for a touchdown to go up before the end of the half. Unfortunately, Eastern Michigan found themselves down by 10 points. They had to get something going soon, and look at this amazing play Drummond was able to pull off. He made something out of nothing there, and he got a 72-yard touchdown to make this a 3-point game. Once again, Eastern Michigan found themselves down by 10, and Matt was starting to get stressed out. Thankfully, he clutched up again as there was a wide open person in the end zone for a touchdown. Down by only 3 now with a little over a minute left in this game, Eastern Michigan had an opportunity to take this win here. Matt did what he did best and clutched up in the most stressful situations as they were now in the red zone. All they had to do now was run this ball into the end zone, but did they leave too much time? They had the lead right now, but will it be enough? Matt couldn't even look at the field as he watched USC score another touchdown as they dotted up the Eastern Michigan defense. This was his final chance right here. This one play, this one Hail Mary. Could he do it? He threw it up, but no, it was intercepted. It was over. USC won the national championship. Matt and his team had come so far. They were so close, but just fell short. He knew to not get down on himself though. He overcame so many things. He made a name for himself this last year. From accomplishments like winning the Heisman to making it to the national championship, this was a successful season.